Good morning, East Point. I need to work on your response. After a song is done, there's like golf applause going on. Like people are like, it's a little bit too polite. If you're going to applaud, applaud. If you're not, then don't. Good morning, East Point. If you're going to say good morning, say good morning.
Good morning.
If you don't want to say it, that's cool. It's all right. But if you're going to say it, mean it. Hey, I'm Jim, and I'm glad that you guys chose to be with us this morning. Love the band and the work that they did this morning. We're going to hear from them again towards the end, and I just really appreciate it. I know they come out during the middle of the week and rehearse, and then they get here first thing on Sunday mornings before you all probably get out of bed, and they're up here rehearsing again, and I just really appreciate their effort in presenting Jesus and his love through music. And do you appreciate that? Let's hear an applause like you mean it. Yeah. Thank you. We started a series a couple of weeks ago called Fake News, and the whole idea is that we're getting fake news across your social media feed and in the newspaper sometimes and on television. We also kind of get it sometimes from the stage in churches, and that's unfortunate. And I'm sure from time to time, everybody's human, everybody makes mistakes, but it's unfortunate when fake news affects our lives, and it's really unfortunate, we think, that when fake news can affect our faith. And so a couple weeks ago, we talked about the fact that Jesus claimed to be the only way to God. Last week, Tom did a fantastic job talking about heaven and how heaven can't wait, and we need to be heavenly minded because it will impact the way we live our lives, and he did a fantastic job with that. And today we're going to finish it up. We're finishing it up because next week is Mother's Day. I can't believe it's already Mother's Day, and we're going to have a big service. So hope you come, and moms drag your husbands in and your families, and that's cool. Most men get drugged to church. Do you guys know that? Yeah, I know who you are. Because I'm a man, I'm that way too. And so next week we're going to have a big crowd here for Mother's Day. So we're finishing up fake news today. And this past week, some news articles came across my social media feed and my desk. And here's one of them. A school teacher in Missouri had a kid in her class that was obnoxious and rude, and so she stapled his mouth shut. That was the article. That was the headline. Now, you tell me, fake or real? Fake. Yeah, it was fake, thank God. Although I'm sure some school teachers in here are probably like, that's my dream. Right? My wife, who's not here this morning, and not feeling well, but she used to teach second and third grade, and one night she was sleeping, and she sat bolt upright in bed, and in her sleep yelled, "Sit down and be quiet!" And then she went right back and went to sleep. And so, yeah. Here's another article that I saw come across my news feed. That is that Bill Clinton is on his deathbed in Arkansas. Fake or real? Some of you didn't get quite a big response on that one. Yeah, that's fake news also. He's alive and well, although I'm sure Hillary has other plans for him. Anyway, we won't go there. Here's another article that came across my social media feed is in Oklahoma. Some of you are from Oklahoma, so you maybe can relate to this, but in Oklahoma, a tornado picked up a mobile home with the family in it, mind you, transported it 130 miles, and the family survived. Fake or new? That's fake. Yep, that's fake. That's fake. I've heard of God transplanting people, but that's ridiculous, right? Here's another article that came across my news feed. Ted Nugent was killed in a hunting accident in Montana. Fake or real? It's fake. He's still alive. He's still alive. He didn't get scratched by a cat and catch fever. Oh, come on, that's hilarious. If you don't get that joke, you're too young. No, he's still alive. I think we have one more. Oh, yeah, one more. So a death row inmate by the name of Jeremy Morris decided that he wanted for his last meal to be the Bible. He wanted to eat the Bible. Fake or real? Fake. Fake news. That's fake news. It didn't really happen. I may have heard of, taking seriously Jesus saying, I'm the bread of life, and you're supposed to eat this. But no, it didn't happen. I'm going to give you another piece of fake news here in a second. Before I put it on the screen, let me set it up and say that you're going to read it, and you're going to say, what's fake about that? And I hope that's what you're asking, because that's what we're going to talk about today. So here it is. I'm going to put this up here, and here's the statement. Jesus wants to give me life. Now, you're probably wondering, what's fake about that? I'm glad you asked. We're going to talk about this right now. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for the opportunity that we have to talk together about the message that you brought when you lived and the message that you continue to bring through places just like this. And I pray that today we would leave here not only excited about what you're doing in our own spirits and our own lives, but also wanting to help other people see that as well. And I pray in your name, amen. I don't know if you've ever had a question asked of you, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? If you've had that question asked of you, you probably imposed yourself on somebody. This morning I was driving to church, and I was on 896 heading north, and there was a guy right on my bumper. Now, I have to tell you something. I grew up in the Chicago area, and so I learned to drive in Chicagoland, and fast driving is in my blood. And in Chicago, on 94 heading up into Chicago, the traffic is insane, and it's bumper to bumper going 95 or 100 miles an hour. Insane. So I'm used to that. What I'm not used to, now that I come out to Delaware, is when no one else is on the road, the guy behind you is still tailgating you. I don't get that. What is up with Delawareans? Is that how you say it, by the way? Are you guys Delawareans? I'm learning. So what's up with Delawareans and the whole tailgating thing? So I'm heading up 896. I'm going, 40 or whatever I'm going, and there's nobody else on the road because there's a guy right behind me, and he's right on my bumper. Right on my bumper. And so I put my turn signal on because I was turning left to come into this place, whatever that road is, and started to slow down. And of course, he got a little closer, and finally he jerked around me, laid on his horn, kept the horn on all the way past me, and then jerked in front of me and kept going. And here's what I wanted to ask him. Who do you think you are? What did I do? Who do you think you are? When someone makes their presence so real in your life that they're trying to impose something on you or to get you to do something, the typical response that you might have is, who do you think you are? Now, Jesus was a real Jewish rabbi who lived in the first century. And he came to this earth, and his teaching was very disruptive. And one of the questions he got from people was, Jesus, who do you think you are? And one of the times that this happened is the time that I want to read about right now from the book of John, and it's in chapter 8 if you're keeping score at home. If you're not, it'll be on the screen behind me. By the way, John was written by a guy named, you guys are really smart. Yeah. And so John was one of Jesus' disciples, and he wrote the book of John. I know there's some debate about whether or not it was that John or another John. We won't get into that some other time. But so John is accounting what he remembered from Jesus' life as being one of his close followers. And he remembers a time when a group of people asked Jesus, who do you think you are? And here's what he says in John chapter 8, in verse number 48. It starts like this. The Jews asked him, Jesus, aren't we right in saying that you are a Samaritan and demon-possessed? Now, let me stop there. Jesus was teaching some disruptive ideas, and so the Jews of the day looked at him and said, whoa, man, that is off the wall. He must be from Samaria. Now, if you don't know what that means, and again, I'm learning Delaware, so if this joke does not go over, it's because I am from Indiana, okay? I'm told that if you live south of the canal, you're already laughing, so I know this joke's going to go great. Thank you. You're making me feel better. If you live south of the canal, it's called the lower slower or the slower lower, something like that, right? Like that's different than the north of the canal, is that correct? How many of you live north of the canal? Raise your hand real high, okay? And so how many of you live south of the canal, real high, okay? And all of you people from the north actually look at the people from the south as like from another planet. Is that correct? Right? And so the Jews looked at Jesus and said, hey, Jesus, and they said, hey, aren't you from the slower lower or the lower slower? Which one is it, by the way? I didn't get it. Lower slower? Yeah, I still don't get it. It sounds like everyone's saying slower, 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 lower, 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 slower, lower, lower. Whatever. So the Jews look at Jesus and say, aren't you from the lower slower or the slower lower, whatever it was, or whatever it is? Don't you want to go back home? And aren't you demon possessed? And so they start calling him names, basically, because, we don't appreciate, you tailgating us and then blowing your horn and getting around us. Let's start calling names because we have no other argument. So you must be demon possessed. You must be from southern Delaware, right? You must be from Samaria. And so Jesus answers and he says, I am not possessed by a demon, said Jesus, but I honor my Father and you dishonor me. I am not seeking glory for myself. I'm not trying to prop myself up here. But there is one who seeks it, and he is a judge. And then he makes a statement. I tell you the truth. If anyone keeps my word, he will, can you say that to me? What's that? Never see death. Wow. That is an unbelievable statement when you really think about it. And here's a Jewish rabbi who says, if you keep my words, you will never see death. Any takers? Yeah, all of us, right? At this, the Jews exclaimed, now we know you're demon-possessed. Now we know you're from southern Delaware. Abraham, and I'm going to stop right there, to the Jewish mind, even today, the pinnacle of their faith is Abraham. I mean, that's where it started. So when they mention the name Abraham, what they're saying is, boy, we're taking this pretty seriously. Abraham died, and so did the prophets. Yet you say that if anyone keeps your word, he will never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham? He died, and so did the prophets. And here's the question. Who do you think you are? Who do you think you are saying that? Come on, really? Really? Are you just insane? What's going on here? So Jesus replied, and the next couple verses, he kind of answers the first question about Abraham and about propping himself up. He says, if I glorify myself, my glory means nothing. My Father, whom you claim as your God, is the one who glorifies me. Though you do not know him, I know him. And if I said I did not, I would be a liar like you. But I do know him and keep his word. And then he's going to make a statement about Abraham. He said, check it out. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad. Their response is the same as yours if you're thinking. You are not yet 50 years old, the Jews said to him, and you have seen Abraham? I mean, Abraham was born and lived 1,850 approximate years before this event. And Jesus, you're saying that Abraham, who is our father, who lived almost 2,000 years before this, saw you? Pfft, really? I tell you the truth. Jesus answered. And he's going to make a statement here that was very controversial, and it's what ultimately got him executed. Here it is. I tell you the truth, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am. Period. And what Jesus did is he referred back to Exodus 3:14, where Moses at the burning bush was introduced to Jehovah, Yahweh, Adonai, I am. Where God the Father for the first time introduces himself to Moses in the burning bush, and he says, I am. What's your name, God? Moses asked. I am. That was the answer. I am. And so when Jesus said, before Abraham was 1,850 years ago, before he ever existed, I am, exclamation point or period, what he was saying is, that was me. That was me. He's making a huge claim here, is he not? Right? One that cannot be ignored, correct? And in fact, you can tell by the reaction. Check it out. Next verse. At this, they picked up stones to stone him. They wanted to kill him because it was blasphemous. But Jesus hid himself, slipping away from the temple grounds. Who do you think you are? Is a question that the Jews asked Jesus, and he said, I am. Who do you think you are? Is a question that you and I ask today of God and Jesus. But once we figure out what he says, then the question kind of shifts a little bit. And it's not, who do you think you are? It's, who do I think you are? Who do I believe you are? Who are you to me? Right? When I was 3 years old, my dad came to faith. He picked up what they used to call a gospel tract. Picked it up off a magazine rack. He thought he was stealing a magazine. True story. Picked up this, what he thought was a magazine, and took it home and read this thing, and long story, he got it, he came to Christ through this gospel tract. Anonymously left by, who knows who. Immediately, my dad grabbed me by the collar and took me to church. And I said by the collar because I didn't want to go. But I grew up in church. I grew up in Sunday school. All of it was like something that I was not quite born with, but I feel that way. I'm a little bit weird in the sense that at age 13, I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I felt like God laid it on my spirit that I wanted to be in ministry. And so I knew from the age of 13 that I wanted to be a pastor and I wanted to preach. So all through high school, I prepped for that, and I went to college and got my 4-year degree. And then after I got my degree, I got married. Then I started working in church, and I was kind of just trying to feel my way. And ministry for me was something to do. Now, fast forward 10 years later, I'm an associate pastor at a pretty big church in Columbus, Ohio. And right in the middle of being an associate pastor there, I got fed up with the whole Christianity thing. I was tired of seeing people come to church and pretend to be something that they're not. I was tired of seeing people leave the church over some stupid thing like, whatever. They were offended by something, or they weren't getting fed, or, whatever it was. And for me, church was always like a family. And it's like a kid telling his parents, I think I'm going to go down the street to some other parents because you guys aren't, whatever. And so I just, I had all this doubt in my mind. And it was kind of a black hole that I started to go down. This is 1999. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that while I was an associate pastor at this kind of big church in Columbus, Ohio, while I every Sunday had to stand up and speak, and while I was ministering and trying to help people, in the middle of all that, I became a pagan. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. I started off, this was kind of a black hole, and at the bottom of that, I seriously doubted whether God even existed. And I'm not even making this up. And every Sunday I'd stand up and teach from the Bible, and I didn't even believe it was true. And I would pray to a God that I'm not even sure existed. And one thing led to another, and I became a heathen. I became a pagan. You say, well, Jim, what led you here? Tom! Send all your emails to Tom at eastpoint.org. No. Here's what bailed me out. I literally, in my own mind, I'm not exaggerating, built my faith one block at a time. And what I could not get past, and I've already said this a little bit previously, what I could not get past is the truth that a resurrection actually happened. I couldn't get past that. I doubted God existed until I really looked at the resurrection. And for me, truth is where it started for me. And I remember reading a Bible from cover to cover, not because I believed it, but because I didn't believe it. And my prayer to the God I'm not even sure I believed existed was, if this is real, then you're going to have to show me. Prove it. And so truth became very important to me. And then I remember thinking, as I was trying to relate to a God that I now thought existed because of the resurrection, and to Jesus who loved me. I tried to relate to him, and I knew that I was attracted to things that gave life, and life was really important to me. And what I mean by that is, you ever been to a concert? For example, you've been to a concert and you leave there and you're just inspired. You want to go home and you want to, create. You want to paint. You want to, something about the concert just tapped into your soul. You know, some of you are nodding your head. You know what I'm talking about, right? That's life. And I've always been attracted to that. I've always been attracted to families that I see get together, and parents and kids and extended family who get together and laugh and mean it. You know, and I look at, from the outside looking in, and that's life. And I've always been attracted to excellence and creativity and things that redemption and grace and truth. I've been attracted to all that stuff. And so it started with truth, and it kind of went to life. And for me, relating to God was all about that life, and it was like a light for me. And to this day, I know I'm pursuing God when I'm pursuing truth and when I find life. And some of you maybe can relate to some of this. Some of you maybe can relate to this in maybe different ways. Some of you maybe think of Jesus and God as a door that finally opened to you, and you felt like someone was knocking at that door, and you walked through it, and this door represented all kinds of opportunities that you never knew existed. And so faith for you has this image of a door. For some of you, it's the resurrection. And I don't mean Jesus' resurrection. I mean the fact that when you've gone to a funeral of someone that you love, you believe with all your heart that you're going to see that person again because there is a resurrection. There's something about that hope that attracts you into a relationship with Jesus and with God. Some of you maybe are attracted to the shepherd part. You know, it's the whole shepherd. I just love the care that I feel I get when I'm connected to a God who loves me. I just love it that he knows my name, that he knows exactly what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. He knows what worries me. He knows what my bills are. He knows what my kids are doing. And that care, that shepherding is what attracts me to him. And maybe that's your story. Some of you might think, well, man, it's like a vine to me, man. It's like I'm plugging into a source of life. It's like a vine that gives life to other things. And I can't really explain this or put this into words, but faith for me is like plugging into something that's dynamic inside of me. Some of you say, well, it's more like bread. You know, I eat a burrito, I'm full. But something about faith, when it's real, fills my spirit. And the only way I can express it, you might say, is I'm being fed. And you're not really literally being fed, but it's like food to you. And that's how you experience it. Others of you may say, well, it's like a gate. And gates were always used, even now, to keep people out, like salespeople out of gated communities, right? Back in Bible times, shepherds used gates to keep wolves out and keep the sheep in. And you like that protection. And you feel like this world is a really cold place and a really dangerous place, but God somehow protects you, and that's what attracts you. That's what keeps you plugged in. And of all these things that are listed on the screen behind me, maybe it's all of them, and maybe it's one of them, and maybe it's some of them, and maybe it's a combination of whatever it is, but this is what attracted you to him. And all of it is you're asking Jesus, who do you think you are? But the question gets turned around, and you start to ask yourself, who do I really think he is? And you begin to try to express this, and maybe it comes out like this, and maybe it comes out with words that aren't even on the screen behind me. And Jesus, by the way, in the book of John, John described Jesus in all of these ways. And Jesus said, I am all of these things. And there was 9 of them on the screen. The 10th one, he said, I am the way. Way is capitalized. And by the way, the early church, after Jesus rose from the dead and went back to heaven, it's just so funny to me. I'll talk about that in a second. But went back to heaven. The early church were not considered to be Christians. That was a term, it was a derogatory term that the Romans gave Christians later on. The early church were followers of the way. They were a sect. They were a cult, literally, in the minds of everyone around them. They were a cult. And Jesus brings this way. And the way kind of describes everything that I just talked about and so much more. He's the first rabbi in Jewish history to give dignity to women and to give attention to children and to say, you know what, if you want to be a leader, you have to serve. And if you want to be rich, you have to give stuff away. And so Jesus comes along and he has this counterculture that he calls the way. The way. Now, here's where we get in trouble. Because this is all really good news. Some of you, in fact, probably all of you are here this morning because of some word that's on the screen behind me. Myself included. I would say that my faith is built on truth, life, and light. And some of these other words are important to me, but not like those three. And that's awesome. And it's awesome for you if that's your story. And so let's put the fake news slide up behind me one more time, and let's talk about this. Jesus wants to give me life. And that is so true. It is so true. It's why I'm here today. I can honestly say, and I'm not just doing pastor talk now, right? Pastors have to do lots of things, and this is one of them. I wouldn't be here today on this stage with you this morning if it weren't for the fact that Jesus literally has breathed life into my spirit, into my soul. And you too, right? And isn't it amazing? Isn't it wonderful? And by the way, if you have not experienced that, then that's our prayer for you. You will experience life beyond your wildest imaginations when you turn your heart over to Jesus. You say, well, where's the fake news then? Do you see the fake news there? Do you see the fake news? Here's a clue. See that little period at the end? That's what puts the fake to this news. When we put a period at the end of that statement, then everything is about what I get out of it. Everything is about what you can give me, God. Everything is about the music speaking to me, and the prayer being for me, and the kids ministry being for my kids, and for the conversation that I have to be about me. And God, you got to answer my prayers, and you got to meet my needs, and it's all about me. And the period at the end of this statement is what puts the fake on the statement. This is why the little period at the end of this statement is why a lot of people, and especially younger people, don't bother to walk into a door of a church today. Because somehow church has become all about me. We put the period at the end. So let's mess with this statement a little bit, okay? Because Jesus did want to give me life, and he does want to give me life, but there is no period at the end. Let's go ahead and continue the statement and make this real, because Jesus wants to give me life, and he wants me to bring it to someone else. He wants me to take it to someone else. Now, have you ever, let's see, have you ever hugged those of you who have an elderly mother, like, I was going to ask for a show of hands, but then some of you would raise your hand and your mom's sitting next to you, and that's not going to work. But you ever notice that, like, I'm trying to be careful here. Did you ever notice that, like, the older you get, the stronger your scent, the more perfume you wear, right? And how many of you ever given your elderly mother or an aunt or someone a big hug? And then you walk away and you're like, oh man, ooh, you can still smell it on you? You know what I'm talking about? Right? Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. You see the I am in the background? And I'm trying not to be trivial here and trite or shallow, but this is almost like Jesus' brand, like he's branding himself. I am. You fill in the blank, but I am. And all the words that we put to that are kind of like the product or the scent, like the perfume he wears. Right? I exist. You smell life. It's me. Right? And so I am is the brand, all the words are the scent. And here's the deal. Jesus wants you to give him a big, huge relational hug. For sure. And he wants you to experience all of what's on this screen and more, for sure. But here's where he's going. After you leave, he wants you to carry that fragrance with you so that the next person you bump into and rub shoulders with says, man, what's that smell? That person's got something. I kind of like that. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, isn't it interesting that, the closer you get to somebody, the more likely it is that you'll carry that person's scent with you later? And the more you're with somebody, right? And so here we are, friends. We're Christians. We're followers of the way. And we're here this morning and we have this scent about us. And here's the deal. When 2 or 3 of us to get together and we have the same scent, we have the same fragrance, we have the same aroma, well, man, amazing things can happen. And by the way, that's called a church. It's called a church. A church is not a building. It's not an hour on a Sunday morning. It's you getting together with him who gets together with her, and together you become something that's called an assembly, a church. And isn't it incredible that when several people get together, or many people get together, that they mix these words and their fragrances together, and out of it comes this powerful thing that God wants for all mankind? What's funny, Jesus said to his friends after he died, he rose from the dead, he spent a few weeks with them, and then he gets them together and he says, okay guys, here's the deal. He said, I want you to take everything that you've learned, and I want you to try to communicate that, to give it away. I want you to communicate that to everybody else. And for those people who make a decision to become my friend, I want you to punctuate that decision with a thing called baptism. And don't worry, because I'm going to be with you always. I will never leave you. And then he left. Didn't he? And what was he doing? He was saying, look, take my fragrance, take my aroma, and get together and spread it around. Right? And friends, the church is all about you finding life, for sure. But if you put a period there, we've missed it altogether. That's fake news. And so many churches, and I won't even say that because it's true, but I have been guilty of putting a period there and limiting myself and everybody around me to what God has to offer. I admit it. And some of the churches I've led have done that as well. I admit it. And this church, I'm sure, has been guilty of this from time to time. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. We're aware of that. And as a church, we are committed to the fact that every last person who walks through those doors matters. They matter because God said they mattered. They matter because Jesus died for that person, whoever it is. I'm not talking about hundreds of people. I'm talking about one person. It was you. It's your kids. It's your relatives. It's your friends. And when they come into this place, if they're not finding life and light and the resurrection and shepherding and bread and gates and vines and light, you know what I'm saying? If they're not finding that, then we put a period after the first statement and we're all about fake news. But friends, as a church, if we will put ourselves out there like Jesus put himself out there and say, look, you matter, that's why I serve. You matter, that's why I pick up pieces of trash when I see it. You matter, and so excellence is a big deal to me. You matter, and that's why I'm praying for you. You matter, right? Here's what I want you to take away. You found it, now wear it. You found it. And like a great smelling perfume, like an expensive cologne, you found it. You were attracted to it. But don't put a period there. Wear it. Wear it. Wear it. Would you join me and let's commit to wearing it? There are people that live within probably a half a mile of here who are far from God and who are literally dying without real life. Let's wear it. Let's wear it. There are people halfway around the globe who will die without Jesus if we, right here in Newark, Delaware, don't wear it. Wear it. We found it, but don't put a period there. Wear it. We've got to move. We've got to move. We've got to be. Jesus didn't come so that I could have life, period. He came so that I could have life, so that you can have life, so that they can have life, and so that he can have life, and on and on and on and on it goes. And this is how the kingdom comes. We don't wait to go. Tom said it last week. Heaven can wait? No, we don't wait to go. Heaven can't wait. It comes. Your kingdom comes, God. It only comes as we wear it and we move and we treat every person that walks through these doors, not only who walks through these doors, but everybody you come into contact with, like they matter. You found it. Let's wear it. Jesus, I pray that today that something that was said would point people to you. And I pray that as we give you a huge hug in relationship, that we would take your aroma and give other people hugs so that they can smell it too. And I pray that this church will continue to be this life-giving, energizing place because you're here. And I pray that our doors would be wide open for anybody that wants to come, because that's what you want for all of us. And I pray in your name. Amen.